The New World expansion is nearly upon us, and there's some really interesting stuff regarding about how it's going to actually come to us, when you're going to be able to download it and buy it, and what's actually contained in it. So really there's some changes to crafting that we're going to talk about in the main. So let's jump in, show you what we got, and then talk about it. So the first thing is this: Rise of the Angry Earth will be available to purchase and download beginning 9 AM Pacific time. That's 4 PM UTC. Worth noting that 4 PM UTC is actually 5 PM UK time, 12 noon Eastern time, and 6 PM in Central Europe. Now the key thing there is that the download begins at that time. You buy it at that time and the download begins. I've been trying to find out if that means it's literally going to be whoever downloads it first gets in or something else. I went buying an insanely long Ethernet cable just so I could be sure that I'm actually hardwired in. We don't know. There'll probably be a downtime before then, but as of right now, technically we actually don't really know what's happening. And then we have the full patch notes. Now a lot of this is actually repeated of what we've seen. If I go through the whole thing, I'd be here forever. Like, look how long this is. It's absolutely insane. But there's some key changes. Now there's possibly changes to some percentages and that kind of thing. We're not going to bother about that. We're just going to look at the highlights, okay? And the first changes we want to look at is how you get the perk on the artifact, the last perk, and how you reroll the third perk on a named item when you're upgrading them or when you just want to change the perk. Basically the key difference here is that they now both require a chromatic seal. So these were available for 5,000 gold and some faction tokens from the faction vendor, but you now need them for the artifact and you need them for the named items. I don't know if some of the other mats will have been decreased and they're sort of making it up with this. Maybe they've decreased the amount of lodestone because that seems to be a trend as well, which we'll go on talk about in a minute. So they're doing that. They basically require chromatic seals. One interesting thing is that the chromatic seals are now also BOP. That's bind on pickup. That basically means you will need to get your faction rep up. Now, even if you have like the 30 missions, you're probably only going to be halfway there. So getting your faction rep up is going to be key to getting gear score 700. I just think in general, unless somebody else does it and they craft it for you, which they may or may not have a cooldown. They didn't in the expansion PTR. Maybe they won't in live, so maybe somebody else could craft it for you. But the named items, I'm pretty sure that then probably goes BOP. Didn't test that. Interesting. We found out what stopwatches we're getting like salvaged into, and I've got to say, very disappointed with this one because I bought a lot of runestone to craft these stopwatches, only to find out that you can salvage them into 10 runestone, which is actually less materials than what you've been putting in. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but we were sort of hoping for something interesting. Runestone, yeah, it's going to have some value still, so it's not a complete loss, but you know, I think somebody in my Twitch chat had like 300 stopwatches. Well, they're just going to get, I can't even do the math, 3,000 runestone. For some reason, they're keeping the pattern in. Don't know why, but yeah. No point crafting stopwatches. Not that you've got any time to craft them anymore, but it is what it is. And I just mentioned it. Basically, the amount of lodestone you need is going down by about 50%. So a prismatic block now requires 50% less runic voidstone, which I think basically turns it from being 10 runic voidstone into being 5. There was so much demand for lodestone. I mean, I still think lodestone might actually like squeeze a little bit, but it's not going to be as big of a squeeze as it probably was going to be. It's reasonable. It's reasonable. It makes sense. I mean, if you found a lot of lodestone, you might have just got wrecked, so it is what it is. Prismatic scarabs now take 1 prismatic block instead of 3, so that also might decrease the amount of demand on that lodestone. So pretty important. And then one of the big ones, basically for prismatic armor and weapons, they've had their resources decreased by 30%. Now they were talking about spawn times and stuff like that. They don't appear to have altered those, but the amount of mats required is going down by about 30%. And this is what you use to craft perfect bisque basically. I don't think this necessarily applies to the chromatic seal crafts. I think it's literally the prismatic as of inductor crafts, if that makes sense. And they've done that for the primary and sometimes the secondary. So if it took 300 prismatic ingots, it will now only require, it's still a lot, 210 prismatic ingots, which makes sense because some of them required like 40 days worth of cooldown mats. It was truly a little bit insane. And I think they've sort of seen sense and lowered it a little bit. It does mean there'll be less demand on those prismatics a little bit, but I think it also means that more people will want them, because now you might as well, because they're going to be a little bit cheaper. So yeah, it'll sort of balance itself out, I think, a little bit there. Just before I jump to crafting, one thing I want to point out is that apparently they've made some improvements to general mount movement, animation, and NPC polish. I'm sort of hoping that'll include the jumping, because at low speed the jumping was a little bit weird. But yeah, we'll see what they've done. There is some other changes there, but most of them I'm not really going to touch. They're not really that important, I don't think, in the long run. Really, the main content or the main new stuff is in this PTR section. So the Mithril gathering tool now has the assigned, proper assigned gathering speed. It was basically working at, I think, either the same speed or slower than an Orichalcum one. And that didn't make any sense. Also, the Dirt Level Satchel and the Mithril tools now have the options to use the Golden and the Prismatic Scarabs, basically for, it doesn't say full control, but I'm guessing it'll be full control, probably the Gear Score 700s, with all the perks that you want, or at least like 3 of the perks. Not really sure how it's going to work exactly, but something you want to keep an eye on it if you're an engineer or an armorer. If you are an armorer and you are making those satchels though, the expansion bags now require the new Rune of Holding. No comment there about furnishing. It doesn't say anything about chests, so I don't know if that's happening or not. Sort of makes furnishing even less pointful, but you know, it is what it is. But the new bags, they need the new tier 6 Rune of Holding. Makes sense. Now this one's so important that they put it in twice. The regeneration serum is here and the regeneration serum is here. But basically they say it now heals for the intended amount of 1% per tick instead of 10%. Sorry about that. That 1 decimal place hits different. I'm not saying they'll lie. I wouldn't want to say anything like that, but I don't know if it was just simply intended it was too strong and then they had to walk it back, but it is what it is. I don't know why they couldn't fix that on the PTR instead of disabling it, but okay, at least that means the regeneration serums are still in the game. They'll still be pretty much in demand. Even if they're not that much stronger, people will still want them. Now, this whole section here is like either a little bit sad or a little bit happy, depending on who you are. I would say, before you make any comments on this, I would ask that you actually play mounts in Outpost Rush before you make a comment. Now, I know that's not going to be possible because what they are doing is making it so you can't mount up in Outpost Rush. But I went into the expansion PTR thinking, oh, mounts in Outpost Rush, that's going to be really bad. I was completely wrong. In my opinion, it actually made the mode a lot better. So I would ask that you hold off if you never played it. If you did play it and you didn't like it, fair enough. But just keep in mind that, you know, sometimes trying it's important. So basically they say, you know, they were happy to have it live in the PTR, but it was not intended to be active at this time. They are, however, going to use the PTR data to analyze the performance and gameplay to see if mounts should be usable at a future release. Sort of feel like they're going to hide under the idea that it might have been affecting performance rather than just giving it us and hiding over the fact that it might have been affecting gameplay. A lot of people who tried it really liked it and basically are saying they've just taken away some of the fun there. And I have to sort of agree. There was less time just walking around, running about, more time fighting, less likely to get absolutely wrecked if you were getting stomped because you could just go out the side door and end up backcapping quite quickly, and it would sort of spread the people out a little bit more. So I think like stomps might have been less useful. I mean, I would have liked to have seen it. Now, if it was affecting performance, it's like fair enough, but stopping us because it was affecting performance is just sad. Stopping us if it was bad gameplay, yeah, that'd be understandable, but most people thought, hey, well, they sort of stopped the fun a little bit there. It is what it is. Let's hope they come back, or you know what, I wouldn't even mind a week on, a week off. Like, let's compare and contrast. I never really touched on this at the time. Basically, they went back and changed one of the articles. You may remember that they actually intended mutations to have a limit of 100, but they sort of went back in one of the articles and changed it to 35, and that's actually what we find here. So, I mean, for them, they're saying they're raising it because they went from 25 to 35, but for a lot of you, you might have expected that to be 100. They are also changing the M2 and M3 bosses. So basically, there is now a debuff resilience, they call it. And they say individual rend and weakened stating effects have been reduced by 50% and 75% respectively. The debuff caps are unaffected by this. I weirdly think that this is aimed at some of the higher level players who are actually sort of planning the groups with rend and stuff like that, but I mean, I just feel like I don't really understand this one. M3s didn't exactly look easy, so I don't know why they've made them harder. But I mean, it's up to them to define difficulty. Let's just see what we end up with, I guess. I think apparently it means you'll need like unique sources of rend and weaken. I don't know how easy that will be. I don't know how required that will be. But yeah, interesting. I need to sort of do them. I didn't really do any proper mutations in the expansion, so I can't really comment. Now, something that I'm not like overly like annoyed by or anything like that, but artifacts that drop in expeditions will now only drop from the mutated version of that expedition. Sort of means we're going to have to wait for the rotation, I think, which is going to get a little bit frustrating. I don't know if they necessarily thought this through. And I sort of feel like if you are a casual who can only do the story mode, no disrespect, I'm completely okay with that, then there might be some that you're literally locked out of. I don't think M1s are going to be like that challenging necessarily, but I don't know. I don't know why they made this change. I don't know why they felt it was necessary, but I just wanted to throw it in there. There's a lot more to it. If you want to go and check it out, go check it out. For me, those are the key highlights and lowlights depending on your point of view. I'll leave a link in the description below. There was also a video about the influence push. Nothing really in that. They do reiterate that they want them to feel rewarding. And I think like with all the kills that you get, then, you know, and the loot that you pick up and all that kind of stuff, it might feel rewarding on live, but the actual end result, just like the bags were just rubbish. What I would do is simply just buff the participation reward, basically the one that you get at the end, the little bag, and it's either 2 or it's 1. Buff the rewards in that, make people feel like they should participate, even if you're going to get farmed. Like if you're really bad at PvP and you're just going to die a lot, then a lot of those other rewards you're not actually going to get. Make it so that, you know, if I'm just chilling in a night and I'm not really doing anything, I don't want to group, I can go and participate. Yes, I'll get farmed, but at least let me get a reward. I'm at least trying. Yes, it's a little bit of a participation trophy, but then I'm good fun for the people who want to kill me, you know? And I still don't feel that bad because I get a decent reward at the end. Making it so that you get it from the kills and it's salt and the XP track and stuff like that. I don't know, I just feel like they could also do both. Anyway, that video, apart from that, wasn't really interested in it. Bit weird to do that the day before the expansion, but, you know, I'd say yes, it is weird. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Big shout out to my YouTube members and my Patreons. I've only got my Patreons listed here. I think I actually need to update it. And the YouTube members. I'm trying to get you guys to go to Patreon simply because it gives me more money. It's that simple. Money, money, money. And if you want to come and drop like a Prime or something, yo, I'm on Twitch. I'll be streaming the expansion when it goes live. Other than that, I hope you have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.